Welcome to the Better Business Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Zelan. Join me week after week as I interview high-level entrepreneurs on their journey to success, both in business and personal development. Each week presents new stories to learn from and new ideas on how to run a better business. Stay updated with all the guests we'll have by subscribing to this podcast. So as far as entrepreneurship goes in general, not related to crypto or any of your businesses, what's your favorite part about being an entrepreneur? Is it time freedom? What exactly is it that attracted you?
There's a lot of pros. There's also a lot of cons. I mean, the mental health thing really got to me at first. So I've had to train my mental resilience. Now I don't get anxiety, but I used to get anxiety attacks all the time, which is actually really common with entrepreneurs. Most of them won't admit that. So that's probably the dark side. But the good side, yeah, I think the time and location freedom, man, because I could work wherever I want, whenever I want. I could go to Europe for 6 months. My business won't be affected because I have 6 months of podcasts in the pipeline. Yeah. So I'm good till July. I cannot film another podcast right now and still release one a day.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So do you feel like you said, you can be geographically anywhere. Do you feel that the environment that you're in affects you? Like, is there a reason that you live in Vegas as opposed to somewhere else?
Yeah, that's huge. Highly recommend people watching this if they're in a small town or they feel like they're kind of isolated. I grew up in New Jersey, so not a lot of entrepreneurs there. A lot of families are there. It's a state for raising families, in my opinion. So coming to Vegas was a big decision for me, man, because there's conferences every day here, dude. There's like 5 a week. There's so many events. UFC's out here. Just the networking's phenomenal. I think Vegas is the best move I've ever made.
And did you move here specifically for the podcast?
It wasn't planned, dude. So I went to LA thinking that was going to be it, because I cared a lot about social media back then. This was right before the pandemic started. So I thought business would be good there. It was terrible, man. I hated it. It lasted 5 months and drove to Vegas, not even planned. I ended my lease early and drove here, stayed at the MGM for a month looking for a house. But it was honestly, it worked out.
I like a little bit of all of it. So for me, the most important thing that I appreciate is the time freedom. So for example, last week, my daughter had a dentist appointment. I took her to a dentist appointment at 10 and she goes, "Hey mama," she's 5. Can we go see a movie? And I'm like, you know what? Let's go see a damn movie. Yeah, let's go see a movie. I don't have to call anybody to ask, hey, can I get off work? Like, I have the freedom of time to just say, you know what? My 5-year-old wants to go see a movie. We're going to have a fun day and take off the rest of the day of school. Yeah. I also am, I would say, like, maybe unhealthily competitive, and entrepreneurship kind of gives me an outlet for that, of really just competing with myself. So it's definitely the building aspect. I love the building aspect of being an entrepreneur, but there's a lot of things that I think people don't realize about it, that you're trading one job for 1,000 jobs when you become an entrepreneur.
There are no limits to entrepreneurship. Yeah. Like, you can, as big as you can dream, that's as big as you can succeed. You're constrained in a 9-to-5 job. You're constrained when you're working for somebody else. You have to receive approval from somebody else all the time. But when you say, I want to grow a business and this is how I think I'm going to do it, go do it.
Yeah.
And so the best part for me is I'm a dreamer, right? I have these really big goals, really big ideas. I probably talk my wife's ear off all the time about these crazy plans, but now I'm in a position to go do them. And I have 4 companies now. I don't just have the law firm.
Okay. And what are the other ones?
Yeah. So I have the law firm. I have a lawyer education company, right? Okay. So we teach lawyers how to build, scale, and automate their firms. We have a rental fleet, right? So again,
of what?
Of vehicles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, and we again, part of our practice is personal injury.
Yeah.
And we were recognizing that people were having a hard time finding particularly 7-seater cars, trucks, and anything over 100,000. So we thought to ourselves, we have captive audience. We can't rent to our own clients because that's a conflict. But we thought there's a necessity for vehicles in this circumstance, and other people are in there. So last year we bought 30 cars and started to scale that, and we cash flow each car about $1,000 a month.
Wow.
So I mean, that again, just an idea that I had in the back of my mind, saw the need, and I turned that into a business. And then the last one is an app that we're currently developing. It's a self-development app, similar to 75 Hard, but more customizable. So it's called Ideal Day.
Ideal Day.
I think the reason I became an entrepreneur was for all the freedom you mentioned, right? Yeah. Time is important. I've got 3 kids, just hit 10 years of marriage.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I want to do whatever I want. I mean, that's the whole point of being an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Money freedom. And I wouldn't even say it's money freedom. No matter how much you make, you're always going to worry about money. So more so just not having a cap and being in control of how much I can make, and there's no limit.
Mm-hmm.
So, I look at financial freedom a little differently than most. And then just, like the freedom of not having a constraint on what you can do and what you can say and all this stuff. It's like, dude, I'm not trying to follow anyone's rules and have them tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this. I'm going to talk about it. And nobody can tell me what to do. Like, it's great.
Yeah. Have you ever hired an outside consultant to come help you improve your business? Because, some of the people watching, they may already have a successful business, but maybe they've plateaued and they want to take it to the next level. They want to improve their business. So there's many different ways you could do that. But have you personally ever hired like a consulting team or consultants to come in and help you get to that next level, maybe in just one area of your business?
Really, it goes back to that mindset thing. So you asked about mindset earlier. I have a performance coach that we've really heavily focused on mindset. We focus on goal setting. We focus on accountability, on like really mapping out what we're going to do for the next quarter, for the next year, what our 5-year plan is, and then just putting together goalposts on things that we need to do to achieve that. And then they just keep me accountable and keep my mindset in check. So a performance coach for me, it's kind of like a life coach or like a therapist, but for business, just
business therapist.
Business therapist, yeah. So she's been like immensely helpful for me. But for any business owner, maybe they don't have an ad agency, I'm launching a video newsletter for any business owner. And it's at 9figuresecrets.com. Just kind of showing a lot of these mindset hacks that I've implemented, a lot of these business fundamental things that can apply to any business. It's super cheap. It's like $9 a week. And I send you a 9-minute video kind of outlining different topics every week. And it's great for any business owner. It could be someone who owns a small mom and pop, brick and mortar store. It could be for someone who has an online business. It could be for any entrepreneur at all. So that's a nice little like minimal investment, $9 a week, just to like get these like snippets of, pure business consulting gold, to take and apply to their business. So that's at 9figuresecrets.com.
To be able to accelerate my timeline. And I could spend the time and learn it on my own, but it's going to take me years.
Yeah.
I have to learn from my own mistakes along the way, or I can have an expert come in and say, here's the 20 mistakes that you're going to make. Mm-hmm. I'll give you 3 examples. So Nick Santonastasso is one of the most amazing speakers that I've ever met in my life. If you know Nick, he has no legs and one arm, amazing human being. I hired Nick to be my personal mentor for developing our coaching consulting for lawyers. I spent a lot of money on Nick. And we built a program in literally 2 weekends.
Wow.
I flew out there with him. It was a crazy dedicated, it was a lot of time, a lot of effort.
Yeah.
But his experience of doing that accelerated my timeline. Keaton Hoskins, same thing. And then with selling the coaching and doing all that, Ryan Pineda, one of the best, coaches, consultants out there for real estate. So we're applying that now to law with his expertise. So
awesome.
Rather than waiting around and making mistakes all along the way, I can, what do they say? A true, a really smart person is one who learns from somebody else's mistake.
Yeah.
Like a smart person learns from your own, but learning from somebody else's mistakes, man, I can get so much further and so much faster by utilizing their expertise.
Yeah. Have you ever brought in like outside consulting companies to help you grow certain parts of your business?
Not really. We just hired.
Okay.
For us, we're a completely vertically integrated business. I love vertical integration.
Mm-hmm.
I think if there is a nickel spent anywhere within 500 yards of my business, I want a piece of it. And that's just how we've always done it. So what we've done is we've either built or acquired companies through several different methods. Like, for example, I was talking about this yesterday. My favorite method for acquiring stuff like this is the Tony Soprano method. So let's say that you've got a vertical or an auxiliary business that's connected to your business that you think you can make go. This goes back to my vitamins, not spending the money before you know if there's demand. I'll go find a vendor or another company that's doing it already. And I'll say, look, I want to send all my business to you. And then I would just literally turn the jets on to where all of the business is funneling to that one vendor. And then after about 3 months of tracking it, if I can look at it, if I can tip the scales where I become north of 50% of their revenue, well, now we have a conversation. Because now the conversation is, all right, how much of your business is me? When they say north of 50, it's like, well, I'm your new partner.
Yeah.
And that's how we've acquired a lot of the verticals that we have through solar, transaction coordination, just different things that we've done. And it's a good business move for them because they know it's like you get to a point where you're like, okay, proof of concept is there. I can go open this myself and hire employees, or we can just become partners. And continue to grow it. So for all you people thinking, listen to this like, man, that's ruthless. This dude's trying to just take advantage of people. No, it's a good savage deal for everybody involved. Because really, we're driving revenue they didn't have in the first place.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. That's very creative. I've never even thought of business acquisition through that method. That's the Tony Soprano method, huh?
Tony Soprano method. Yeah, Tony Soprano.
I'm going to have to look into this more, but that's cool. Yeah, I mean.
I would say I have mentors, not directly like I'm paying them, but just people on YouTube that I watch. And then I have people that I could text just for advice, 9-figure CEOs and whatnot, but they're not like public people.
Yeah. So do you think that's the route to go for most people if they're wanting to grow their business?
I mean, yeah, you could pay or you can just find value to provide the person and they can mentor you in exchange, whatever route goes. But it'll definitely save you time, man. Because my first 3 years, I didn't really have anyone. And I was just honestly working on really minuscule tasks like customer service, graphic design, just wasting time,
Yeah. So do you find that some people, like once they reach a certain level, maybe let's say 5 houses or 10 houses, they're like, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't want to manage this on my own because I'm making enough that even if I pay a property management company, I'm still fine. And that way I have all this freedom back. I have time freedom now.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer. I use property management companies for all my long-term rentals. Like I do not want to do credit checks and have to walk you through every time you want to rent one of our houses or one of our apartment buildings. So we do use property management for all of our long-term rentals. So we've 8 short-term rentals. The rest of our 250 doors are long-terms. So, but for our short-terms, it's a little bit different. So if I would have paid a property manager on our 8 properties last year, 25%, I would have been paying him $250,000. And I've got better things I can do with that $250,000, like go buy more real estate than to pay someone that much for what is essentially like a $50,000 a year job. So what most people do and what we kind of teach our clients to do is once you get to that point of, for some people it's 5 properties, for some people it's 20 properties. It's whenever you feel like, okay, this is doing a little more than like interrupting my dinner occasionally, is we hire VAs. So we've got a full-time VA that he works for us across multiple businesses, but he probably spends, I would say, like a quarter of his time on our guest messaging and managing our properties. So by teaching him, so we have our established list of like standard operating procedures that we've created. We've got a lot of Loom videos, all that. So it's a little bit time intensive setting it up. But then once you train a virtual assistant to be able to do all this, it's much like you get to keep so much more money than if you use like a true property manager for 25% of your gross.
Definitely. Yeah, that makes sense. I like that idea of training somebody up to be on your team that's working maybe even in other parts of your business, but also part of their time is dedicated to managing the property and answering client requests and whatever it might be. So that's very interesting. And I think that's a very valuable model. Now, if somebody's looking to find the right team, how did you find your team? Do you find that you just attracted them because you have a brand, you have this presence and people were attracted to you, or did you have to go find them?
Again, I got luck. Maybe not the answer you want, Austin, but I'm being honest with you. I used to rent studio time down the street from where my studio is here in Vegas. And the engineer there was this kid, Travis Flesher, and he was 20 or 21 at the time. Now he's 25. And he ended up quitting that studio, and I about had a meltdown because I was like, what am I going to do without this? You get used to having the same engineer week in and week out, and he's cutting your clips and he knows what you want and he knows the flow of your show. You want that guy, And so when he said he was leaving, I had a panic attack, and I was like, wait, why are you going? And he was like, yeah, I'm just over it. And I was like, you're over it here or you're just over it as a whole? Like if it's just you're over it for where you're working, I can fix that. I'll go open a studio tomorrow. And that's literally what I did.
Wow.
And partnered up with him and made him a partner. And, he's been instrumental, and he's the one that has found the whole team over there and trained him. A lot of them are people that he knew, went to school together here in Vegas and so forth. And he's been amazing over there, and he's been the difference.
As far as team goes, I very much agree with you. I do think that there are certain people that are only there to be with you until a certain level. After that point, you've outgrown them. And if they don't want to grow, they can no longer be part of the team, which is for me, it's a painful process, having to like redistribute roles, so to speak.
Right.
So for your business, how do you source these people? Is it just people that are attracted to your personal brand? Do you have like ads out, or is it just referrals? How do you build that dream team?
That's a great question. I mean, for me, because I've had so many opportunities to speak around the country and around the world, I've developed relationships just with people. And it's amazing for me. I'll tell you one employee that I have right now, team member, Steven Tronis. The guy he is a 10 out of a 10. And I've known him for a few years. And then I began to develop my new company that we're getting ready to launch, another company we're getting to launch. And I went to him, I said, hey, my wife says, I think you may be gifted in doing this. He goes, absolutely, I am. And as I sat down and talked to him, now I've known him for years, but now I didn't realize the gold mine that was sitting right here. And so for me, it's the relationships that I have, and then just having the conversations. And so for him, he says, oh, I can do that. Oh, I know how to build a platform, Kajabi. I know how to do coaching programs. I know how to do that. And instead of bringing it on as an employee, he's actually part of my team, and he wants to grow the company with me. So for me, relationship is key. There's nothing wrong with maybe doing ads or, finding somebody who's going to go out and find a team member for you. But for me, my best success has been with people that I've had a prior relationship with, not knowing their gift mix. And then all of a sudden, this opportunity comes for me. And then these people begin to appear.
How did you source these people that you're hiring? Are you like looking online? Are you posting job ads?
No, I'm not doing job ads. Actually, I just would post a story on my Instagram and be like, hey, I'm looking for this, and that. And people would respond. So
yeah,
that was it's worked out pretty well for me.
Yeah. No, I've definitely done the same thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, social media is like a very powerful tool to do that. And the cool thing about that is that they're already familiar with you and who you are, and they understand your brand and your values and your style and all that stuff. And so there's immediately some sense of like cultural fit with you. So if they like you as a person, then they probably are going to be a pretty good cultural fit. If they just totally dislike you, like they're just not going to apply,
Right.
So it's kind of a nice filter as well. And I do like that, because at the end of the day, it's kind of like it's my resume up here in front of everybody. And if yours aligns with it and you want to be, my whatever, then come work for me. But you already know what you're getting yourself into. So there's no surprises.
I mean, I've definitely run into roadblocks with that, because there's a difference between people that genuinely want to work for you and help you and actually bring value versus people that are just fans and they just want to be around you and just say that they work for you.
You just have too many fans. That's what it is.
Well, but I've had to weed through those too as well. But I have a pretty good level of discernment. So I'm able to filter out what's fake and what's real.
So what's your fan filtering system?
Honestly, well, I have to meet them in person, obviously. And then I can feel it.
Yeah.
I'm very much like, I can tell. I can feel it. I can tell by their answers when I ask them the right certain questions. I can tell by the way that they answer. I can tell with their body language. I can tell what's important to them, what's not. Because I go deep with my interviews. I go really deep. Like, what's important to you? What's your morals? What's your values? And just where they're at mentally. And I can figure it out pretty quickly. Give me like 10 minutes and I can figure it out.
One thing that people who are running a business in today's day and age, we can't ignore the fact that technology is stepping in a lot. So I know like in the podcast studio, you guys are using a lot of tech. Do you see yourself using more AI than you were previously? Are you planning to, or like?
Yeah. It's funny you say that. So yeah, I come in one day and I start raving to George, the guy that engineers my show and that really takes Action Junkies under his wing. And I'm raving about this podcast description. Like, man, you've taken it to the next level. Like, you really put the time. I read the whole description. And he's just thanking me and he's smiling. And I'm like, no, I'm not kidding. I'm like, I think he thinks I'm pulling his chain. I'm like, no, I'm serious, George. Like, this looks amazing. And then he comes clean. He's like, it's Chat GPT. I was like, wait, what? And he was like, yeah. And then when I read it again, I was kind of mad at myself that I couldn't. Of course, George didn't write that. Like, not that he's a bad writer, but the level of detail. I have since, I go back and forth with it a little bit. Like, I think it's too over. Like the first time I read it, I was like, okay, this is cool. Now, like, we're still doing it. And I feel like it's not quite there yet. Like, it still needs us. We need to like get in there and
human touch, and
it needs a human touch. It's a little too over the top with it, you know. So I kind of want to dial that down. But yeah, I mean, it's only going to get better. And it's really interesting. Like I've been talking to this group. They have a company called Second Self. It's an AI platform. I should actually introduce you to them. It's an AI platform that they're predominantly working with like OnlyFans models right now for like the chat, you know. But they've got, you know, a roadmap to work with entrepreneurs and stuff where it could make sense, you know, business advice, you know, your second self, right?
Like duplicates the person. Okay.
As this is like it's coming from you, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of been toying with like I want to do like an AI podcast with just AI podcasters of people. Could be kind of an interesting thing to do. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm older, so I don't always embrace tech and change, but I'm trying to, you know, I'm still, you know, I'm more old school with a lot of things, but it's definitely going to be interesting. I'm curious to see what happens with the election and AI. I think it's going to wreak havoc on the world personally, because I think there's going to be, we thought there was, you know, misinformation in 2020. I think now it's going to be a free for all because I think both sides are going to use AI against each other, right? It's like I'm really curious to see how all of this unfolds, but yeah, I think AI is obviously going to be a big part of every business, and it's just a matter of figuring out how do you use it to the best of your advantage.
So, how have you leveraged AI in your business?
Yeah, so in law, it's a lot of people have a fear in law that AI is going to take over law.
Yeah.
And I don't have that fear. I think it's going to make law extremely more efficient.
Yeah, for sure.
We use a company called Filevine that has an AI integration. So it can review medical records. It can review commercial documentation, tax records. It can review operating agreements, shareholders agreements, non-compete. Like it can review all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then I can say draft a demand when I give it the input, and it provides what I kind of like a law clerk draft. It provides you a base foundation to start from. It's not even close to a finished product.
Yeah.
I've actually seen people who've sent me emails where the prompts for AI are still in there.
Oh, really?
And I told you the story about the lawyers who literally wrote something into ChatGPT and drafted a motion on it.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT spit out case law that was not real case law.
Yeah.
And they filed it. And of course they got in big time trouble with the New York State Bar. So it's basically, it gets you from 0 to 1 a lot faster.
Yeah.
It doesn't create the finalized product. And here's why. Law is so much more than just the what, right? Law is the what if. So what I mean by that is my job as an attorney is to analyze the situation and not just tell you what is going on, but it's to tell you, well, what if these various contingencies happen?
Yeah.
So I always say the what is easy, the what if is hard. So what you're paying, like if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'm buying a business for $1 million. I go, and they go, can you write it up? I say, you could write that up. There's no difference between me saying business $1 million transfer here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's nothing. So the what if though, what happens if a shareholder defaults? What happens if there's contingencies you need to raise money? What happens if you want to bring somebody in? What happens if you want to kick somebody out?
Yeah.
What happens if there's dishonesty in the warranties? All the what ifs then go into the hypothetical that I then create the document to solve. So to your point about risk, it's risky, but I'm solving all of those risks through the what if, right? So AI is helpful in getting you to a starting point, but then the lawyer intuition and the training, honestly, what we learn in law school, we don't learn laws. We learn how to identify the issue. We literally learn a thing in law school called the IRAC model. It's issue, rule, application, conclusion. And most of what we're taught is to identify the issue, was to say, well, what if this? What if that? I mean, the rules, AI can give you the rules. AI can even give you some of the application.
Yeah.
But identifying the issue and then being able to craft that and solve that, I think that's really the value. So AI is a great tool. It's made us a lot more efficient, but I don't think it'll ever fully replace us.
I know there's like talks about having AI as CEO of a company. Would you ever trust an AI to just run your business?
I mean, I think we're going to be trusting it to do surgery on you pretty soon.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a tough one. I think I still would want a little bit of say-so in those aspects.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
A red button somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere.
No, don't do that.
I need an off button somewhere, a reset button somehow. I need something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't thought about that, but oh my gosh, you know what? I'm going to say this. I'm going to digress a little bit. I tell my kids this all the time. And I say to my kids, the most valuable skill you can have in 20 years, the most valuable skill in this country will be the ability to sit down at a table just like we are and connect with a human being one-on-one.
Yeah.
Because these kids today, that their face is so far down on their phones and they have no ability to connect in the real world. That is going to be an asset that AI will not be able to replace. And it's going to be, if you've got that in 20 years, I tell my kids this all the time, you will eat every other kid for lunch.
Yeah.
You're just absolutely going to eat their lunch if you can learn this skill.
Yeah.
So we're constantly trying to do things to implement that.
Yeah. And to add to that, I think it's beyond human connection. It's also storytelling, and being able to connect to an audience or connect to that person that you're speaking with. So I know you also
philosophy when it comes to giving back.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, let's pivot a little bit to artificial intelligence. You did mention it just a little bit, but I wanted to dig in a little bit deeper and see if there's any AI applications that you found in your business. I know in my business, it's totally transformed how we do some things. And we've been able to not necessarily replace people quite yet. I do think that's coming in the future, where we'll have AI CEOs and CFOs and all that stuff. And it'll be cool to see a company just totally run by AI. But I've been able to make some processes very efficient, including like on the lead gen side, we're able to nurture leads using AI and all that stuff. So we can totally cut out part of the sales team to where the closers are very, very efficient because AI is doing all the heavy lifting for them. So have you found any application of AI in your company? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So great question. I think for ad agencies, there's this real risk of leaning too much on AI, almost to the point where it becomes like a shiny object. So many ad agency owners that I know have just given up their ad agency. Like I spoke to one at a mastermind about 6 months ago. He said he was struggling in his ad agency. So he decided to shut down his ad agency, which was having a pretty good amount of success. Instead of scaling that business that was already established, he started an AI training company. And now he's struggling even more because, there's a lot of people who are taking advantage of AI, but the space is getting so competitive that it's hard to really stand out. So
do you think it's more competitive than like an ad agency? Because that space is pretty competitive too.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I think that if he just used his knowledge of AI to improve his ad agency and just focus on his business that was already, moderately successful, he could have scaled that business a lot more. Because like now he's just getting like, selling a low ticket product, whereas before he was having high ticket recurring revenue with his ad agency. But I think that there's a lot of tools that are great for ad agencies to use. Like one that we use is a platform called deal.ai. It's a really good system for creating different, we'll write some of the copy ourselves and then send it through there, and it'll just like optimize it based on, SEO trends or based on, Facebook ads that are converting well. And it just kind of like
gives it a copywriting tool.
Yeah, it gives it like that extra edge.
Nice.
And it generates like really high converting ad images as well, which is great. That's awesome. We also use it to nurture leads, like you were saying. So when we generate leads for solar professionals or roofing professionals or any home service professional in our ad agency, we'll have it go through to our CRM and we'll have AI book the appointments, because sometimes the clients are pretty lazy at calling their leads. Like they're not as successful as other clients. Some clients crush it. They do great. They have great systems. Some clients are lazy. They don't call the leads when they come in right away. They don't work them properly. So the AI assistant has been really helpful in just getting more of those leads to convert to appointments and then convert to sales for the companies. Yeah. So we've used it a lot.